Hi, welcome everybody. Today's panel discussion is the current situation for international MBA applicants in the United States. Over the last 4 or 5 months, there's obviously been a sea change in terms of the policies that govern immigration. A lot of people who are looking to apply this year now have questions about how this whole process is going to be handled. And we've assembled here at GMAT Club a group of experts who come from three different perspectives, from the world of MBA admissions consultants, people like me, Jeremy Scheinwald from MBA Mission, Caroline Diarte Edwards from Fortuna Admissions, and from the perspective of MBA programs, that is the universities, we have Bruce Delmonico from my alma mater, Yale. We also have Kate Emery from Carnegie Mellon's Tepper. And then we have two immigration attorneys and experts here, Amber Davis from Waypoint Immigration and Caro Kinsella, who's a visa attorney. So I want to actually start this discussion with where a lot of potential applicants are coming from, which is the very basics of how this process is looking for them over the next year and what they can expect in terms of what is different, et cetera. But before I jump into that, I just want to make a quick housekeeping note. If you do have questions along the way, please do drop them in the Q&A section and not in the chat. And I'll try as best I can to bring those questions in throughout our conversation. And hopefully we might also have a little bit of time at the end to clean up any questions that are still lingering. All right. So like I said, I want to set the stage by starting with kind of the very basic stuff, which is, and I want to address this opening question to Amber, and then perhaps Caro can also talk about it, which is, can you describe kind of briefly the recent policy changements and announcements that are going to affect international students and people who are looking to secure H-1B visas? What is true? What is untrue? What are the things that they need to be aware of? What maybe could be happening next?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to talk about this. And I think I could go on a long time, so cut me off if I talk too long. There's tons of rumor right now. There's so much rumor going on. I would say in general, the US is still a great place to study. Students will be allowed to study here. A lot of students here have never had any trouble with immigration and never will have any trouble with immigration. So everyone's in a state of panic, and I think everyone can take a deep breath. That being said, everything is a bit uncertain right now because there have been a lot of changes going on with policy. There haven't actually been any changes in the law, and I think that's really important to point out to everyone because since there haven't been changes in the law, students here can sue the government, they have rights. There's been more of a change in the enforcement side and more of a change on the consular side. So things that are true, I'm just going to rattle them off and go one by one. Number one is the government culture right now is impacting adjudications. Government has gone through tons of layoffs, there's tons of new people, there's tons of untrained people, and it changes the tone of the service towards more of an enforcement tone and one where people are not as friendly as they have been in the past. Government employees are also in fear for their jobs, so they're really trying to follow what they think the government policies are from coming up from the presidency and all of that. There's a lot of tension, though, in the Republican Party about a group led by Stephen Miller, who really doesn't want any students in the US, and a group led by Elon Musk, who really does want a lot of students in the US. So it's not like everyone is aligned to keep students out. There's enough tension here where students will still be welcomed in. All right, it's a huge new area of focus with misrepresentations, social media, political activity, and then people from the Middle East and China in particular being targeted. So if any of those things apply to you, you should probably get some legal advice and talk to an attorney, talk to a lot of different people before coming to the US or filing applications. There's this new thing where the government has paused issuance of all student visas, which is more of a procedural thing at the consulate. We have heard that some consulates have started to reschedule those, so I don't think that it's going to be a long-term or a permanent thing. So don't worry if you're not able to get an appointment right away. You will be able to get an appointment in the future. They're just revamping their policies right now and all their procedures and vetting and all of that. Some universities are being targeted. So we have Harvard being definitely targeted, a few of the other universities that were really in the news around the Israel-Palestine conflict and all kinds of protests and violence and the things in the news, they are being targeted. Right now, Harvard can still have students at a school. So if you're applying to Harvard, still apply to Harvard. You can still get your I-20. You can still go to school. But I think it is important for everyone here to have a backup plan and a second option just in case something happens. So keep that in mind. And then just really quickly on upcoming things to watch, we're worried, I think, about the future of OPT, which is the year of work authorization that students get after school, or 2 additional years if in a STEM program. The USCIS director, who's currently undergoing the process of actually formally being appointed to lead the agency, is really against OPT. And so we may see some restrictions that come forward after that. So I would say also have a plan for working after your program. You may or may not be able to work in the US, and you need to make sure that your plans are set accordingly. It's a really high level summary. I can go deeper on any point, but I don't want to take up all of the time. So, yeah.
Can you say something additional about the social media aspect of it, the
Yeah.
social media tests? Because this is something I've been asked about a few times from clients. Is what does this mean? You just got to go through your Instagram and clean up anything that might look like a protest, or is it something more complicated and deep than that?
A little bit more complicated, not that deep though. I think one of the reasons the consulates have closed and stopped student visas is because they are putting in more procedures right now specific to social media. The US government will ask for all of your social media handles when you fill out that DS-160 form to get your student visa. It is very important that you list all of them, even the ancient MySpace account from like my ancient days. Like anything, even if you think it's old, even if you've never used your LinkedIn, go ahead and put it on the form. USCIS is going to want access to that. The government's going to want access to that. The consular level as well. Just make sure that it's on the form. And then, they're not necessarily scraping everyone's social media. They're not necessarily inspecting it in person. So when you go for your consular interview, I wouldn't necessarily expect them to take your phone in most cases. I guess they could ask for it. But the taking of the phone is more likely to happen when you come in and actually enter at the airport with a Customs and Border Protection officer. They will scroll through some things. They have some algorithms and programs on their end that are specifically, I think, targeting anything related to support for Palestine or any kind of anti-Semitic anything in your profile that could be considered anti-Semitic. They're also looking for any kind of ties to terrorist organizations or organizations that are really anti-American or any Communist Party ties. Absent any of that, if you don't have any of that on your profile, I really don't have major concerns with most students' social media. I don't actually recommend scraping or minimizing or deleting accounts in most cases, but if you have something that you feel is super concerning, it is probably worth talking to someone about. If you have something that might be concerning, in some cases, it may be good for you to make a disclosure at your consular interview, but you will want individual guidance before you do any of that.
Okay, and Bruce, one of the things that Amber was talking about was the idea of having a bit of patience as the policies get clarified. I know that having worked in a university and gone to grad school, I know that universities being sort of these large bureaucracies, these types of sudden changes can be pretty tricky to handle. Can you say something about either what Yale specifically or the School of Management is doing, or how you are, the kinds of questions that you are fielding internally, either from students or that you're trying to figure out, and what your thoughts are in terms of kind of the next moves for Yale and how you're going to try to adapt to the new reality facing non-American students?
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. It's a great one, and there is a lot of uncertainty, as Amber said. There's a lot of change and a lot of a lot of up in the air and a lot of questions we're getting from students. And yeah, universities can be large, slow moving bureaucracies, and so I guess, one thing that it's and every university is a little bit different. We do have a couple of things I would say. We've been through this with COVID, so we had to be very nimble and very adept then to kind of the ongoing changes. It seemed like every day something new happened, and so we kind of got used to that frequency of change and that we're dealing with uncertainty and making contingency plans, which we're doing. We're kind of dusting off our COVID plans a little bit now. But specifically to the questions about kind of visa interviews and the pause and uncertainty about that, we at Yale, we have our Office of International Students and Scholars, and they really run point on everything sort of visa related, international student related, and they are in really constant touch with the consulates, and they know what's happening. They've advised, as Amber said, they've advised that, what the advice we're giving to students, as the incoming students, as they are expressing uncertainty, is to be patient, continue to do the things you can do to get here. Things, so pause on the sort of the interview scheduling, obviously that hasn't affected past interviews, and people have gotten visas. People are still in process and still sometimes moving through the process. So don't give up hope. Don't, keep moving forward with what you're doing. And we've tried to provide resources through OISS directly. We've engaged an immigration attorney to help our students to get the guidance and advice they need to navigate the process successfully. We're continuing to try and find whatever resources we can, connecting with our career development office to give a sense of what things look like on the career front, just giving people the information they need as questions arise, and recognizing that things can be moving quickly. So just making sure we're providing information as we have it. We're giving updates, providing support, and recognizing that these are students we value, and we want to make sure we can do everything we can, and they're doing everything they can to get here because they provide so much to our community. So even with things moving slowly bureaucratically in the grand scheme, we are able to try to be a little more fleet-footed at the school of management and working with OISS and some partners to kind of get our incoming students the resources they need to navigate the process successfully.
This might be asking way too soon, but you brought up COVID, and one of the concerns that people have is that if the immigration process is still really bumpy and students can't come, is this going to be a return to Zoom classes, or is that a question that you guys are punting on for the moment?
A little of yes. The topic has been broached, and I know, talking to colleagues at other schools, talking about that, they're again dusting off the COVID playbook and thinking about possible remote starts. But really, it's too early to tell. But we do want to wait till the last minute to kind of start thinking about this. We obviously want to make sure that we are thinking far in advance about what the contingencies are, what that would look like, putting the pieces in place, hoping we don't need to pull the trigger or kind of execute on that, but recognizing that we need to be prepared in case we do need to. So I know we have started those conversations. I've talked to peers at other schools. They've started those conversations. Some schools might be farther along than others, but definitely making sure we're kind of thinking through the possible outcomes and being as prepared as we can for whatever things look like, but in a couple months from now.
And Kate, what's the view from Pittsburgh? How's Carnegie Mellon and Tepper thinking about this moment and how best to serve the students and answer the questions and concerns that they might have?
I'm going to reiterate, a little bit about what Amber said, remain calm. I think that's a great piece of advice. Things are changing weekly, daily. What was going on 2 weeks ago is different than what's going on this week. It will be different next week. We know this. So kind of tagging on what Bruce said, schools tend to move slow on some things. This is not one thing that people are taking slowly. They are in communication with, their immigration offices, in communication with academics, with deans. Everybody is aware of the situation, but we're cautious. We don't want to jump the gun. And I think that is what I'm hearing, from schools across the US, where we're staying informed, we're in discussion, we are contingency planning, but it is too soon to say this exactly is what we're going to be doing in the fall semester. So it's great to have these conversations, to hear from students. If you are in the process of applying and you're working with a school, tell them how you're feeling. Reach out, because I know I want to hear from students. I want to know where they're at, what questions they have, so that we can address those. And also kind of understand what the anxiety is. And then also, in terms of, planning, understand that things are changing and we don't have all of the answers right now. I know right now we're doing some things on a case-by-case basis. For instance, with the travel bans, We've reached out to students who are admitted for the fall just to, see where they're at, working with them on a case-by-case basis on what their options are, but also planning, similar to COVID, what would be, a most likely case scenario, the best case scenario, the worst case scenario. But until we have more information and until we know what it's going to be like a month from now, we might not have all of the answers. So it's good to have the communication, but unfortunate for, our students and prospective students, we don't have the answers just yet.
And for Jeremy and Caroline, this is for a lot of students, you're still pretty early in the application process if you're looking at applying in the fall. But what have you heard from applicants in terms of what they're concerned about, the questions that they're asking? Does it feel substantially different this admissions season coming up? Is there more discussion about, do I wait a year? How are those questions kind of playing out? If Caroline, you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. Candidates are concerned, and so we're having a lot of discussions with them about what the situation is, what they should do, what their options are. What I'm encouraging candidates to do is to apply early. So if they apply early, that gives more time to secure your visa and all of the logistics and so on. And in any case, we always give that advice, right? And so many of our candidates who've been admitted for this season have already secured visas, because if they did apply early, then they were able to get into that process earlier on. In the current situation, I think it's wise to have a plan B as well. So I would encourage international candidates to apply to the US if that's their goal, but also to consider other options if that would make sense for them as well. So I think apply early and then consider other options. And of course, there is a lot of anxiety. I also encourage candidates to take a long-term perspective, because the MBA is something that stays with you for the rest of your career. It will pay dividends for your career, not just in the position that you get immediately post-MBA, whether that's in the US or whether that's elsewhere, but also for your entire career. So I encourage candidates not just to think about what's going to happen over the next couple of years and what job am I going to get when I come out of the MBA, but really take that longer term perspective on how it's going to add value and impact them in the longer term. So yes, candidates are concerned, but I think that the value proposition of coming to study for an MBA in the US is still incredibly strong, and many candidates recognize that. And then, of course, on the other hand, there may be fewer applications from candidates applying from international markets to the US in the coming season. So it could actually be a great time to apply, right? Because the competition may be slightly decreased. So that could be a plus for some of the international candidates. What about you, Jeremy?
Jeremy, I'm sorry.
I'm not sure I have any new themes
that?
here, guys. I think everyone here has really covered so much of this already. We're asking our clients, we're trying to meet them with empathy, and trying to understand that we've had several calls with clients, and we're talking about clients who are applying for next year as opposed to people who are in school now who certainly need a lot of empathy. The uncertainty if you're planning to start school and that's up in the air in the next couple of weeks is obviously. I'm sure it's tough to manage emotionally for someone who's got staked a lot of the last year of their life on getting to school. But for those who are looking to the future, I think that there's just a need to kind of keep calm and understand. I think as Kate was saying, basically, these are eons. I mean, in this administration's time and in the political cycle of things, and the other piece, and I don't think it's going to bring so much solace, but as Amber was talking about this, the change in immigration, someone who's starting a program, like someone who's applying now, who's starting a program in a year, could be graduating at the end of this administration already, like with only a few months left in this administration, and so things might quickly swing back. And again, I know that's a tough wager to make as 3 years in advance, but again, I mean, I just keep going back to this theme of eons, and without trying to get political, I mean, I think everyone here can remember when I'm in Canada right now. I crossed the border this morning when the biggest story out there was, you know, the U.S. is going to make Canada the 51st state. It's like that's such an old story now at this point. There have been so many other stories that have come and gone, and it's not that I think this is just a story. It's a real thing for people, and there are real consequences. But it's possible that, you know, there'll be some broker deal with institutions that are managing, you know, the administration right now, and that will just become the settlement, and the whole thing will peter out until another story emerges. So yeah, that same theme as everyone else, patience, and like I said, like Carolyn said, I agree with her. Unfortunately, that might be a little bit of an opportunity for some people out there who maybe dare be bold where you know, dare boldly go where others might have some hesitation.
This is, I guess, for you, either you or Caroline. Do you have a sense, any type of early data that's going to show whether or not this is going to be a slightly easier admission season because numbers might be down from international candidates, or is it just rank speculation at this point?
You know, Carolyn, I have a little bit of data. I can pull it up. I just asked for it the other day because I was curious, because we definitely feel like we're hearing from applicants who are anxious. We're starting to wonder if maybe some of the anxiety among the international applicants is leading them to seek more help. So it's possible that we're seeing in our numbers an increase in international you know, enrollment, so to speak, with us. And it may not actually be indicative of what's going on in the pool, but for this year so far, our international numbers are actually up, and not insignificantly, in terms of inquiries and clients at this point, which, I will be totally frank with you, shocked me when I saw the numbers. Absolutely shocked me. There's a little bit of fuzz in that data because we base it on where people make the transaction. So some people, you know, have like bank account in a different country or whatever. But for now, this year, we're actually up with internationals.
It's interesting. Caroline, do you have any sense of what the
Yeah,
coming landscape is?
Similar volumes to previously, but I do think that candidates are considering various options. So we're definitely seeing clients applying to more a wider variety of programs. So whereas in the past they might have just been targeting US programs, now they are looking at targeting US plus some international programs. So I think there will be a bit of bet hedging going on, which could make it more difficult for schools, of course, because then if candidates are applying to multiple programs and getting multiple admits, then yields can go down for individual schools. So I think there will be a bit of uncertainty in how things play out over the coming season.
And Bruce and Kate, kind of related to that, how much discussion has there been in terms of maybe changing or augmenting the deferment process? Again, I know this might be a little bit early, but if things start to get bumpy and someone is admitted, is that an allowance that's going to be made?
I can jump in and say, as I said earlier, we're doing it case by case right now, depending on, you know, what the individual student's circumstances going into this fall. So those who have already been admitted, be in communication. That is the key thing. One thing I love to tell students is I'm not a mind reader. If you have stuff going on and we don't know about it and you come to us after a deadline, it's a little bit more challenging to work. But if we know what is going on and what the challenges are and you're communicating with us, it's much easier. So the deferral process is on the table right now because there's so much uncertainty and we don't know what's going on a week to 2 weeks to a month from now. It is case by case, but we are keeping an eye on, you know, how long is this visa pause going to take? How is it going to impact our current students? For next year, still far too soon to say, but I think that, you know, in my experience, schools are being cautious, but open to options. Is that the same with you, Bruce?
Yeah, I think that's right. It's very well said, Kate. And I would just reiterate, I think, you know, it's obviously varies school to school, but the way we're approaching it is it's early. You know, to continue to work to try to get here by the fall. We'll work with you. We're not going to give up at this point. And we'll, you know, we'll see how things evolve. And if it gets to the point where we need to think about deferrals, we'll obviously do that. We're going to try to do the best we can for our students and by our students. So I think Kate, you put it perfectly. So I would just add that little bit.
And to build on that point, again, from my experience working in a university, and it'd be great if you guys could expand on this a little bit. I know that if applicants have some sense of fear or trepidation about what life is going to be like in America, I know it's a bumpy moment. My experience has always been that universities care a lot about their student experience and their sense of belonging and safety. And so certainly within the walls of be it Yale or Carnegie Mellon or wherever, that there's going to be a lot of attention, resources, empathy, focus to make sure that they are both kind of looked after and protected even. Can you speak on that a bit?
Yeah, I mean, I could start with this one, Kate, and then maybe and hand it off to you for additional thoughts. I think that's right. I think our institutions, and I'm sure others as well, we aspire to be very welcoming places. We aspire to be, global in nature. We have lots of people coming from lots of different backgrounds with lots of different perspectives. We want to be a place where all those perspectives are welcomed and shared, and there's a lot of peer-to-peer engagement. So I think that's right, and obviously there are resources in place. You may mention the Office of International Students and Scholars. There are obviously many kind of clubs and organizations for students, many support groups and networks that we have in place to help students coming from lots of different backgrounds and lots of different experiences. And so I think that will continue, and I think if anything, only increase to make sure that we are providing the support that our students need to get as much out of the experience as they can. And obviously, there's the broader question of sort of the climate in the country more generally. And I think that's obviously going to be, it'll vary depending on where you are and what context you're in. But I think certainly within our university walls, we are doing everything we can, everything we have been doing in the past, and maybe more than that, going forward to try to create the environment a learning environment that will be meaningful for everybody who's part of our community.
Yeah, I mean, just to jump on, I think it's very important to know is that we want you here. As Bruce said, international students bring a unique perspective, their different backgrounds, their different interests, and it's not just, a learning opportunity for you, it's a learning opportunity for Americans, and it's a win-win situation when you bring people together from different backgrounds for an education program. In today's globalized world, you have to have this global perspective. So again, it's very important. And as an institution, I see this broadly, we do have support services available to students. As Bruce mentioned, Yale's immigration office, we have the Office of International Education. There's a lot of information out there that schools provide for prospective students. So if you're looking at programs now, you can go on and see, well, what services do they provide for students? Do they offer, host families? Some schools do that, or peer-to-peer engagement, relocation information. So having information is always going to help you be better informed. You can make decisions. And I would say, right now, schools are trying to be very proactive in outreach to students and letting them know, yes, there's a lot of uncertainty. We don't know exactly what's going on or what the future holds, but we want you here, and here are the resources we have available to help you. And so, if you're sitting around not sure what's going on, do some research, either connect with the school or see what they have available. And you'll be surprised how much information is out there for you.
Amber, a lot of the questions that we're getting have to do with kind of country specific things. And I think maybe a good way to approach this would be to recognize there are a couple of different buckets. So recently, for example, I think a couple of years ago, India surpassed China as the #1 country sending students to the US, but China is still a very large portion of students in the United States. They have their own new sets of rules that are been put in place. There's also the travel ban country. So we had someone, I can't recall if Iran is on the travel ban list or not. Okay, yeah, so we have an Iranian student who's asking about that. And then there's kind of everybody else for to make it sloppy. But can you talk about each of those different groups and like what they face and what the particular challenges are for applicants coming from each of those respective groups?
Yeah, sounds good. So we'll start with India. India is the largest group of international students in the US. I would say Indian students don't necessarily have as many issues as everyone else getting into the US with the student visa, but they certainly have a lot more challenges when it comes to work authorization afterwards and staying longer term, just because they are subject to very significant backlogs as a result of so many Indian students being here. So long term, Indian students need to be really aware of all of the options and long-term planning. Chinese students are facing a lot more scrutiny right now. So typically, I would put them in the same kind of group as Indian students, but I do think things have changed significantly for that particular group. I expect actually a lot more administrative processing, delayed visas, some people to be actually denied visas based on their area of study or supposed Chinese Communist Party ties. I know a lot of students just join the party as a matter of course, it's what's expected. Typically that wasn't an issue for studying in the US, but no, I think it will be. So just be prepared for that. And then
Can I ask you, sorry to interrupt, can I ask you
yeah, go
quickly
ahead.
about the area of study thing? I know a lot of
Yeah.
MBA programs have added like a STEM designation, and it was in previous years was this great marketing tool. Does that complicate things if you're at a STEM designated MBA, or do you have to be within the STEM designate portion of that MBA program, or what does that or is that relevant?
It's uncertain. So I would still say STEM is the way to go for most MBA students. If you want to maximize your options post-graduation, choose a STEM MBA. It will benefit you significantly. Even Chinese students can pick the STEM MBA. I don't know exactly what areas the US is just considering to be sensitive. They haven't fully defined that. I might stay away from any kind of thing that is particularly targeted towards AI for Chinese students. Like just pick a general tech STEM program. Don't do anything that's AI specific, even if some MBAs are now offering that as a specialty. But yeah, just a little tip there. For the countries that are on the travel ban, which do include Iran, unfortunately, we are expecting updates on that after 90 days. We're expecting more updates and just rolling updates on it. If you are on a travel ban list, you will not be able to obtain any new US student visa. And so you can still apply with schools, you can still apply for MBA programs, you can still get in, you can get all of your paperwork lined up. We just don't know if you're going to be on or off the list when it comes time to get the visa. So set yourself up, but have backup options for other countries, or a deferred start date, option. Just set yourself up to deal with that uncertainty. And then I would say in general, students from the Middle East or Africa or Southeast Asia expect a lot more questions about intent. Intent is a big issue with F1 student visas and one that isn't necessarily talked about. You do need to demonstrate that you're maintaining your ties to your home country, that you have career opportunity, job opportunity, family, economic benefits back home in your home country. And I am actually expecting a lot more questions about that. We haven't necessarily seen a huge rise, but it's certainly being talked a little bit more about, and enforced in the visitor visa context. So F1 is definitely next on that.
All right. I'll take a quick pause to get to some of the questions that are here. There's been three questions so far that are sort of not directly related to the immigration question, but kind of Trump adjacent, the new policies. And that's with respect to DEI. I know that a lot of schools either explicitly within the application process or it's kind of implicit with how they think about these things. They'll have some type of diversity statement or something like that. So for Kate and Bruce, can you talk about how the changes with respect to admission and the Trump administration's DEI policies change how you guys are approaching your application, either in terms of explicit questions that are asked or how you think about it? And maybe there's a lawyer off screen who's telling you to be quiet. I don't know.
Yeah, I can do the no comment. And Kate, we work with our council, post students prepare admissions, and we've made sure that everything we do is compliant, and kind of kind of sort of race neutral and race blind actually, and post after that case. So we've tried to we've been very careful, very cognizant of what the legal requirements are, and that we're following them. And so that's I don't know that we had any. I do know we didn't have any explicit sort of race questions in our application ever, and that's not been something that we've sort of asked expressly about, but we made sure to be make sure that we're being sort of fair and neutral in terms of how we're constructing our questions going forward, and following all the appropriate guidance. I just step back a little bit though. We do want to, and this gets to many dimensions. We do want to assemble a community that is very diverse across a range of dimensions. We talked about sort of the global dimension. We have diversity of thought, diversity of background, diversity of experience. We've spent the last several years. It's been many years at this point, trying to understand the context in which people are applying. So socioeconomic status is very important to us, and kind of making sure that we are open to as many people, and we create as many opportunities as we can for as many people as possible. So we are thinking about the ways in which we can be a community where people are learning from each other and bringing different experiences and sharing those experiences and learning from them in a wide range in a sort of multitude of ways. So I would definitely emphasize that, and obviously the panel here, we're talking about the international student context, and that's something, again, as Kate said very eloquently, that's those perspectives are what we very much value. We think it's valuable. We provide a valuable learning environment for our students, and it's also valuable for students from different geographies to share their perspectives with each other.
Kate, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I would just concur. Working with legal counsel, making sure that we are following all guidance through the university, while still being able to, understand the different perspectives of students that we are, or students that are applying to our programs, and getting to know them on that personal level. And, the DEI question is challenging right now because it is a big change that happened quite quickly. But, schools are working to support their students to still provide access, especially with diversity of thought and diversity of all kinds. But, there's nothing, I think, that would go against any of the new policies or procedures that came down the line.
Okay. And related to that, I guess this would be for Jeremy and Caroline. If I'm an international student, are you changing the advice and guidance that you're giving to people in terms of either what they emphasize in their application, how they approach it? I know we talked a little bit about kind of the bigger strategy about timing and maybe diversification of where you apply. But do you feel like the changes have altered much the advice that you're giving to potential applicants as they're sitting across the real or virtual table from you, asking how to build the most compelling application possible?
Well, I don't think it changes fundamentally how a candidate should present themselves. Because I don't think there's a big change in what the schools are looking for. I think that in any case, it's good to show that you're flexible, and that, particularly when it comes to career goals, as we've discussed, for some candidates, it may be challenging to stay in the US when they graduate. Hopefully not, right? Hopefully things won't change. And I agree with what has been said about how things can, this is an issue that has popped up very quickly, and it could equally quickly disappear again. So, and given the long time frame for candidates who are applying to business school and then graduating in 2 or 3 years' time, the situation may have settled down. And so hopefully there won't be issues with being able to stay in the job, apply for jobs and stay in the US. But it doesn't hurt to show that you're a flexible person. In any case, that's a good quality to bring to business school. And when you present your career vision, you don't have to express that you are wedded, for example, to staying in the US, because you can talk about what you want to achieve. You could talk about the position that you're looking for, what you want to do when you graduate, what you want to do in the longer term. And that doesn't necessarily have to be wedded to, I want to be in the US. You don't even have to necessarily specify which geography you want to work in when you graduate. You could talk about a specific recruiter. So many of the companies that MBA graduates go and work for are global companies in any case. And so you may have an opportunity, perhaps you want to work for Amazon, or you want to work for Google, or perhaps you won't have the opportunity to work for them in the US, but of course, they're recruiting for opportunities all around the world. So I don't think it fundamentally changes how you should present yourselves, but I think it's good to keep in mind that showing flexibility could be a positive trait to emphasize.
Jeremy?
I think Carolyn said it quite well. I mean, I think maybe maybe you give a little bit of thought to your career goals, showing you have that flexibility, hedging without maybe seeming uncertain or wishy-washy a little bit, talking about how you could see your career evolving in one or two different ways. But I think, like, fundamentally, the applicant is still the applicant. You can't change who you are just because of macroeconomic conditions. And so, if you're if you're applying to Yale and you're discussing the biggest challenge you faced in your life, that doesn't change because of government policy. That you're still your values, or the biggest commitment you've made. I apologize, Bruce. But like, that shouldn't change. If that's core to your experience in life, and that represents you best, just because you come from Canada doesn't mean you, or from any other country or whatever it might be, it doesn't mean that you write about something else. And that's true really of anything in the application process. If AI is the soup du jour today, it doesn't mean you write about AI. If you have no experience with AI, you don't write about it. And a couple of years ago, these things always, a couple of years ago, it was finance or entrepreneurship or whatever it is. You should be writing an application that reflects yourself and your values, and that by and large should exist in a vacuum, unrelated to other stories, because they do come and go, as we've been talking about.
And
Jeremy, sorry.
Go ahead. No, by all means.
If I could just add, first of all, you got the essays right, so thank you very much for that. But it's just from a school perspective, I would just reiterate that we're not predicting the future. We don't have a crystal ball, so we don't know what's going to happen 2 years from now. And I think Amber made this point, or maybe Jeremy, you did. If you're applying this fall, you're going to be graduating, 3 years from now. Who knows what things will look like? So we're not trying to predict what things will look like. We don't admit people because, oh gosh, AI is hot now. I know, like the late 90s, that the tech was, the place to be, and then the bubble burst. And so, like, if you started in one place and then by the time you graduated, the landscape was completely different. So we're not trying to predict where things will be a few years down the road. Just to reiterate the point you're making about how you should present yourself and how you should think about your application. Sorry, Brian. Thanks for that a little additional time.
Yeah, no, of course. Please, anyone interrupt anytime. There's a couple of questions that have to do with this question that's related, in some ways zags to your guys' zig, and so I'll ask it to Amber. People have concerns about post-MBA work opportunities and how that has changed. And I guess that most of those questions are kind of more directed towards the structure or the rules. How is that different if I'm, let's say, heading off to business school in the fall, how might, if I'm an international student, my reality be different in a year or two when I'm starting to put myself out in the job market, assuming that I want to work and remain in the United States?
Yeah. So typically after you graduate, you can get 1 year of OPT. And then if you're in a STEM program, you can get an additional 2 years of STEM OPT. So you're going to get up to 3 years of work authorization. If you want to stay and work in the US after that, the typical pathway is an H-1B, but there may be some other visas that are available depending on your circumstances. So Right now, I think a lot of students are struggling to get that first job after school just because they graduated right at a time where the job market is not good. And this wasn't possible for them to know because in 2022, when they came into the US, the job market was great, like absolutely fantastic. So again, it's hard to predict. And yes, the job market is not great right now. So if you're looking at the market conditions right now to determine what it's going to be in a few years, I think you are probably going to be wrong about that. So take everything one step at a time. Be flexible, like some of the other speakers are saying here. Take a longer view, like some of the other speakers are saying here, and be patient. But there's no structural change to OPT yet or STEM OPT yet. There could be, but if there is, it will be a long process to get that changed. And like I mentioned before, there are a lot of warring factions in the Republican Party on that particular point. So I don't expect it to be a smooth change or a change overnight, and you will have time to plan for what happens after graduation, either way. As far as going into H-1Bs, H-1Bs are a little bit easier to get now. Maybe it's a 40% chance instead of a 30% chance in the lottery. But again, that's because of job market conditions where fewer employers are hiring. So it's two sides of the same coin. Just know what your options are, and seek to put yourself in the best position to take advantage of all of those options when you graduate. And generally, that means being a great student. It means being an active member of the community, an active member of the profession. So things that will be really great for your career anyways, no matter where you end up or no matter where you go.
And to extend that to the universities, Kate, do you have a sense of what you might tell somebody who is concerned about what their job prospects might look like in 2 or 3 years after they graduate?
It is too soon to say. It's hard to give answers because this is what you want to know. This is what prospective students want. They're planning their future. They're doing their 5 or 10-year plan, and they want to make sure that they choose a program where they can get that job they want. I would tell students, take advantage of every opportunity you have. If your school offers internship, do the internship. If your school offers opportunities to attend conferences, to do networking, to do recruitment, absolutely take advantage of everything because it just betters your options going forward. If you are making those connections, you're more likely to find someone who, it's who you know, also what you know, but who you know that can help you find that job later on. And to talk on the point of OPT, as Amber said, it would be a long process. And so as we keep saying, continue on with your plan, but have a backup just in case. And I think even with, applying for schools now, whether you're attending this fall or fall of 2026, move forward with the plan of OPT, but have a backup just in case things change 2 years down the line. If things change, we wouldn't know right now. So it's kind of, continue on like the status quo, but have options in your background.
There are a couple of questions that have to do with financing the education. And so I'll just read one of them that sort of touches on what a lot of them cover. Will scholarship money be affected after President Trump ushers in funding cuts to diversity programs and foreign aid? Is that something any of you can speak on?
Well, I can jump on and just say it may impact if you are looking at exchange visitor, a J visa that might be paid for through a Fulbright or a similar program. But if you are planning to come on the F1 visa cannot have any federal funding. So government cuts may not impact scholarships. It could impact, if you are looking at PhD programs, looking at, working with certain offices. But for MBAs, I don't really see a big impact of those cuts to the scholarship pipeline for an MBA. Bruce, what do you feel?
Yeah, no, I would echo that. And certainly for our own internal scholarship support, that wouldn't affect that in any way. As we look at sort of changes to federal loan programs, we're looking to see what we as a university can do to kind of step in and fill the gap and make sure that there are options remain for our students. And so that's something we're always actively looking at. And we're anticipating, as we anticipate and look forward to possible changes, we're definitely trying to think about what kind of sort of contingency plans we can have in place to keep funding for our students in place.
All right. The most popular question, understandable, given that these are people who are looking to apply, is basically people want to know, are you changing the basic numbers of your class, right? Like how does it alter my chances of getting in this year if I'm a domestic student, if I'm an international student? I know you cannot say that it'll be much easier this year. That would that would be something that you're not allowed to say. But can either of the school representatives, Kate or Bruce, say anything about how you're internally viewing what you think the constitution of your class is going to be like in this coming year?
Yeah, I can start, Kate, if you have additional thoughts. And I think we're both kind of nodding in the thinking similar things. Where it is every application cycle is different, so we have to see what it looks like. Hopefully, Jeremy's right, and sort of the interest is only increasing. But we're not looking to change the composition of our class. We're not looking to kind of adjust in any specific way. We have to see what the pool looks like and what the quality of the candidates are, and we'll make the decisions based on that. But we're not, there's no directive to say we need to increase here or decrease there. I think it would be premature. And again, that gets to we're not going to predict, what things will look like, how many of our months or years from now. So there are no changes on our end.
I agree. It's, we're moving forward again, status quo, hoping, that things get cleared up quickly. But we're not, there are no plans to change the composition of the class.
Okay. So we have about 5 minutes left, and I thought that we would just end by allowing each of you to say something to, a non-American applicant who's out there who's thinking about applying either to your school or to a school in the United States or to business school generally, how you would think about the new paradigm, how they should approach it, what's different, what's the same. Jeremy, would you like to start?
Sure. I was thinking, please ask me first because I may have to leave with 1 minute left here, so I don't want to be rude to anyone. I'll try to be as quick as possible. But I think, paraphrasing what a lot of people have said today, your degree is going to outlast any administration, and there's a lot of long-term value in your MBA. And I think a lot of people who are students think about that first job, but really, if you talk to people 10, 20, 30 years out, they've forgotten about their first job. They're really just thinking about sort of the perspective it's given them in their career. So. Yeah, just try to keep that long-term perspective.
Caroline?
I would say don't be deterred. I know that this has created concern and anxiety, but don't feel that you are not welcome because, as the schools have said, the international perspective is still very much valued. So whilst government policy may change, I think the atmosphere on campus is not changed. International candidates are still a very important part of the MBA experience. They add so much in terms of diversity of perspective, which adds a lot to the richness of the MBA experience for everybody, not just for the international students, but also for the domestic students. It's really important to have that injection of different perspectives. So don't be deterred. I would encourage you to still apply and take a long-term perspective of the MBA and what it will do for you. But also think about other options as well. You might want to think about a plan B if you are in a situation where it might be difficult for you to enter the country at a specific point.
Kate?
Gonna reiterate another point we've made all throughout this is stay calm and stay informed. Information is your best tool moving forward. And to add to that, don't just trust social media or what a friend has said, what the Google AI has summarized for you. If you're looking for information, go to the source. If it's an immigration question, utilize, professional resources or government pages. If it's a question about the school or a program you're applying to, go to the school, go to the program, ask us questions. Because ultimately this is your life and you need to do what's best for you. So gather that information so that you can make the best choice available with what you have.
And Bruce?
I think that was all wonderful comments, and I would echo them all. And I would just reiterate that, we value international students. I think it's a sort of mutually beneficial relationship. You enrich our communities, you make our communities better. And we do feel like Tepper and Yale and all of our peers, we provide transformative experiences for students. And I think Kate had a good thought on just a practical and tactical perspective. Stay calm. Things are changing, but things will continue to change. And don't take the current moment as the end point. Continue to work towards your goal. We will work with you towards that goal. And if we're patient and persistent, we will be able to accomplish what we were hoping to achieve.
Thank you. And for Amber, I would add, in addition to whatever you were going to say, I'll just to add on what the point that Kate made. Can you say a little bit about when someone might decide that they need to seek professional advice to manage their immigration question, and how they should think about that?
Yeah. So I do recommend that people are generally aware of all of their options. If you don't know what the next step is or what the visa options are, do some research online, but you may want to talk to an attorney at that point just for an overview call. And some people have some free guides out there. There is a lot of information out there. You definitely need to talk to an attorney if any U.S. immigration official has ever given you problems. Like if you get questioned by CBP, talk to an attorney about it, because something might be in your record that you don't know about, and it could be a bigger issue than you think. If you want to make a major change, like starting a business, talk to an attorney. If you have issues with OPT and the school doesn't seem to be doing it quite right, that means there's probably something weird in your record, and you may need to talk to an attorney. But make sure you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, talk to an attorney. And don't rely on the AI for that. So thank you for that comment, Kate. The AI is always wrong when it comes to immigration law, literally every single time. So don't rely on AI for that. But yeah, just in general, I highly recommend that everyone consider a STEM MBA, just because it does open up more options for you after graduation. You don't have to, but if you do the regular MBA, just know it's 1 year of work authorization max. It is not 3 years. STEM gives you 3, or the option for 3. Have a backup plan that doesn't involve the United States. Students have a great time here still. I work with lots of students. You do, I think, want to have a backup plan so that if worst case scenario you are kicked out of the country, it's not ruining your life or anything like that. You can move on and have plenty of opportunity. Rarely do people really have to consider that. So I don't say that to scare you, but just have a backup plan in case. And it will help you reduce your anxiety levels in the US if you do have a backup plan. And then my last note was just enjoy your time here. There's tons of opportunity here for international students. The people in the US are generally very welcoming, especially in all of the major cities. There's just lots of opportunity, and very few students encounter major issues. There's lots of high profile ones right now, but most of my clientele, everything goes smoothly for them. They talk through their anxieties, but they still get the work permit. They still eventually get the green card, or they move back and get an opportunity in their home country. So don't worry too much. Take things one step at a time. And yeah, I think everyone had great comments. And I learned so much too about how the universities are handling this. So thank you all.
Yeah, and thank you. And before I go, I'll just point of privilege, I will say, as the son of someone who came from sub-Saharan Africa to the United States to get a university education, I am fiercely proudly American. I love this country, and I know what immigrants add. I still believe that things are bumpy, but I think it still can be a really valuable and transformative experience for you personally. And for all the students out there who are looking to come to the United States, I do wish you the best of luck in this process. And I hope that this information has been helpful, and that if you do have questions, please reach out to any of the panelists who've come here today. Once again, this is Jeremy Scheinwald from MBA Mission, Caroline Diarte Edwards, from Fortuna Admissions. Also, Kate Emery from CMU Tepper, Bruce Delmonico from Yale School of Management, Amber Davis, thank you for being here today. And for everyone going on to other panels in GMAT Club, enjoy those as well. And best of luck to you in your MBA admissions processes. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.